Awesome.
Okay, cool. So, all right, Eddie, tell me and the audience about yourself. Like, what do you do? Where you're from? Where what you like to do for fun? Anything interesting?
Yeah, so wow, that's a big question. So I am an artist. I work in advertising. Uh right now my W-2 is and it was graphic design that led to me into advertising, like more proper, and I've done content production, video editing. I've worked in broadcast television and all kinds of stuff. I'm
Oh
in
wow.
the California market. I work in LA. Um, so and we live in Long Beach, and we got into real estate investing because I used to be like this guy that worked in advertising. I was a graphic designer, artist, lived in Venice Beach, just kind of like that dude, like was
Uh-huh.
always riding my bike or taking long walks to the beach and then just like hanging out there all the time and with buddies and stuff like that. And I had gone through a divorce, and then and so then which made me even more the dude because I had like a really cool apartment down by the beach, and so like I would have roommates or sometimes just be with myself. I would do art shows with friends, art collectives, and all that kind of thing. Um, but I have my family. We have a background of having restaurants, musicians, and a big Mexican kind of like group of like crazy people.
Wow.
And so uh when I met my wife Heather, we we got in we got into like needing to buy a house because she had 3 kids. So I became an instant dad. I went from being like this complete
Oh,
beach
okay.
dude to also an instant dad. And then I'm like, but I wanted to rise to the challenge. I wanted to be, a like I loved it. I loved that whole idea of like being like having a family and uh and so we're like, hey, let's get a let's buy a house, like let's just because we're paying like I had a really good apartment in Long Beach that we had moved to that was bigger than my little two bedroom apartment in Venice. So that way we can all stay in the house. And the apartment, it was a 3 bedroom, but it was like $1,400 a month back in the day. That was really cheap.
Man, what a
And
time.
yeah, what a time. And we were there for a couple of years, and then we saw the writing on the wall. They were starting to the rates were the prices for houses were going up. We're like, oh man, we're not going to be able to buy a house pretty soon, because like houses that were like $200,000 were all of a sudden like $400,000. We're like, dang, we should have bought a house before. And then the rents were also going up. There were every time somebody would get kicked out, they would raise the rent. We're in a 3 bedroom apartment. We saw an apartment for like that was above. It was just a studio for $1,600. They were paying more than we were paying for a 3 bedroom.
Jeez.
So I'm like, they're gonna try to kick us out. They're gonna try to. They were trying to find some way to evict people by saying they didn't pay some utility on like the right way or whatever.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, let's just. She had a couple of realtors friends. She had always wanted to get into like buying a property that we can like house hack somehow or whatever. And so we bought this place, and it was 3 bedrooms. So I did a lot of DIY, ripping out the carpet and getting the place as nice as possible. It still needed some professionals to go in and do the kitchen, but we did what we had to for a while. I have a pretty good job, but she's a stay-at-home mom. So
Hmm.
we had some money to work with, but not enough to just like kind of throw it all in to get the whole house renovated at the time. But it was great because we got to build it up over time. Um, then when all the kids graduated, they're all off to college. And we had one of the reasons, another reason why we went into the house is because we're having a kid.
Yeah.
So we started finding out that he was diagnosed with cerebral palsy when he was very little, and then just recently he was diagnosed with autism. So we're like, man, we were always like, like let's get him into therapies that would benefit him, like programs that will help him for his future, so he can have a good future, and regardless of the cost, even if insurance wasn't covering it. but there was one that was like, it was, everybody was raving about it. Like all the therapists that we were seeing were like, you should get him into this. It's like really good program called Pediatric Minds in the South Bay, but we were gonna have to pay like tens of thousands of dollars out of our pocket. So we're like, let's Airbnb the master bedroom. We don't need this big house anymore. We started Airbnb that to like as a house hack instead of like remodeling our my garage, which is where I'm at now, which is like my office studio. And so we turned that into a short-term rental, and we're killing it. It was like we had already done a couple of things like Etsy to Etsy to sell stuff on online, like doing little hobby businesses.
Yeah.
And so she knew how to get things to rank good and all that sort of stuff, and write great descriptions and everything. And I work in advertising, so obviously that helps, and we're able to take good pictures. So we took good pictures. We got it all listed. We decorated it really nice, and it was booked like literally 3 months in advance. And this is during the pandemic. So you said you do Airbnb too, right?
Yeah, I do some short-term rentals.
So you know how it is. Like about a year ago, you were killing it, right? It was like the money could come in. You were booked months in advance, right? And right now, it's a little bit like people are booking like last minute.
Yep.
You're getting people booking like right now, and we're not making quite as much as we were,
right?
Because that unit was bringing in $2,500 a month during last summer, and this summer it's been around 2,000 to 1,700 a month. So it's not as
high,
much,
but it's still pretty good.
But what we did do that was kind of crazy was we decided, let's take it to the next level, because we're and like buy an RV with some of the money we just made, renovate the kitchen to make the whole house Airbnb-able, and turn it into 2 units. And so we got the permit to basically Airbnb the whole house, and then we did all the remodeling and renovation, and then we moved into an RV in our backyard.
Oh, okay.
So we're like we're living in the RV in the backyard, and I have my office, a little kitchenette here in the garage, and then our tax guy was like, because I'm like, oh man, we made $25,000 last year, and I have a decent W-2, and I got a raise. I'm like, man, what are we gonna do? Like we're gonna pay a lot in taxes. I'm like, I was already imagining like having to pay like at least $10,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
And because my brother was telling me that, oh well, wait till you see what it looks like when you have to pay your taxes. And then my tax guy was like, oh well, let's do a cost seg analysis, and let's figure out how much you spent on your business, and let's write it off as a business, and let's put it on Heather's income taxes. And since you guys aren't technically married, you guys are a domestic partnership, because you guys can do all this cool stuff. And we ended up getting like $20,000 back.
Nice. There you go.
So we're like, holy shit, this is amazing. Sorry about the cussing. I don't know.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
And so it was amazing, right? It was just like kind of this life-changing, like, oh, what the hell? And then so he tells us, hey, now that you guys are doing this, you guys are technically investors, and you got 1 more year to do this, because of when you bought your house and all that sort of stuff, and how long you can roll over this. So you got 1 more year where you can write off this tax break, and then you're going to have to buy, get another property and keep doing this type of thing. So you guys are going to have to continue investing. And we're like, oh my God, that's kind of crazy, but rad. we didn't know how we were going to do it, because we're like, yeah, we're making money, but we just spent a bunch of money to kind of make money, right? And I was thinking like it's going to take about 1.5 years for us to pay off all that debt, and right now the interest rates went up, so if I refinance now, sure, I might be able to take a little bit of equity, but it's not really going to be that much, and try some sort of like BRRRR method, where we just kind of like keep going. And we had read David Green's books, and I was following Rob Abasolo on for a while, and Bigger Pockets is kind of like where I use the calculator to decide whether or not we're gonna long-term rent or short-term rent the house. And we base all of our numbers on like, if it makes money on long-term rentals, and it's for sure going to make money on short-term rentals. Let's do short-term rentals until we have to do long-term rentals, and that way we won't have to worry about the house anymore. We'll just set it and forget it, and then take out the equity whenever we need it in the future.
Right.
And that's when we were, I was at work. I was busy one day. We're ramping up for our busy season. I work on the Toyota website. We're translated into Spanish, and we're launching a lot of vehicles right now. So it's a busy time of the year for me. So I'm like, I'm gonna be like kind of like locked down at work. It's gonna be kind of crazy. And she's like, "Babe, we got to do this now then, because you're gonna get busy. We're gonna be getting our tax return." And I just saw this guy, Pace Morby, on Bigger Pockets. David Green and Rob Solo just bought properties from their students at this event, and we want to be those students.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, I don't have time to hear this. Just tell me more later. And then it's like, then she told me more, and she shared the video with me. I watched it, like on one of my breaks, and I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. Let's do this.
It's that easy, huh?
Yeah, it was that easy. Because we want, I was like, you could buy properties with like literally like zero money out of your pocket by like knowing how to do it. And even if it took us 6 months to learn this process and pay, because we're getting that tax return that we weren't expecting.
Mm-hmm.
Invest that shit. If you don't have money that you're expecting to have, you should put that into something that's going to bring you more money, right? Like,
exactly.
No brainer. It's like no brainer. If you're planning out your how you're going to be spending money for the next year, and all of a sudden you get a windfall, invest that shit. Don't spend it on stupid stuff, because that's just thrown away. Like
yeah,
like you don't even have to read Rich Dad Poor Dad to know that's a dumb idea. Don't buy liabilities, right?
right.
So yeah, that's where we are now. If you have any more questions on that, it's kind of like a
okay. Yeah, a quick question. So when did you buy your I guess your primary home that you converted into a house hack Airbnb?
2016.
2016.
And it was literally like June 10th, 2016. I know the date because which I'm horrible with dates, but it was the day after my son was born.
Oh wow.
So we actually were moving in from the apartment. Yeah. It was like he came early. That's what the problem was. He was supposed to still be in the valley while we were getting the house ready. And then all of a sudden he was like, "Oh, I'm here."
Yeah, can wait.
Can wait.
Heard you got a house.
I heard you guys got a house. I didn't want to miss out. I wanted to be there day one.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny. Okay. And how many bedrooms was it?
3 bedrooms and like about 1,400 square feet, and then that's it's a detached garage in the north end of Long Beach. And I think that was one of the things that we didn't think we could Airbnb, and we were thinking about long-term renting. And then when we started looking at all the calculators and they have the tools that you can like actually search up the what you can get, we're finding out that this area was actually wasn't doing that bad. And so we're like looking at, wow, there's other places renting out for a pretty good amount in this area. We're like, how's that? Why is that? And so when we started doing more and more research, we're like, okay, we're right off the 91 freeway. It's 20 minutes to Disneyland. It's 20 minutes to the South Bay and all the awesome beaches where beach volleyball was pretty much invented. You can go down to Seal Beach in Long Beach, which is like a few minutes away from here. And then you just go north, you're like 15 minutes to downtown LA, SoFi Stadium, all the whole stadiums. Wow. So like you're 20 minutes literally to everything.
Yeah.
And so we're like right smack in the middle. And then if you wanted to go a little bit further, you can go, like I drive 80 miles to go visit my parents every once in a while in the Inland Empire to go to Big Bear or whatever, So it's still like if you're coming from Germany, which we've had guests from Germany just come, they actually went to Big Bear. It's like, whoa, that's amazing.
Yeah. They stayed at your place to go to Big Bear?
No, they stayed at our place just to kind of go all over the place.
Oh, okay,
but
gotcha.
That was one of the things that they wanted to see. They wanted to see like the Big Bear and Joshua Tree. So they made that like almost like a 2-day excursion. But I found that out a long time because my parents had a travel agency. So when people travel, they tend to like, especially Europeans, they tend to want to find a home base. And so that when we would stay at resorts in Mexico, they would go and pay for an all-inclusive resort, knowing that they had their food covered and their house covered. So if they did an excursion to Mexico City and blew all their money, they knew they can come back and eat until they had to get on the airplane. You know what I
That's funny. Yeah, I got you.
mean? Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you initially just rented out your master bedroom, right? And that was making $2,500 a month.
Yeah.
Um,
So what we did was we had a patio and it had a sliding glass door,
uh-huh.
and I was trying to think of how I was going to replace the door because I couldn't find, there was like no locks that were made for that type of door. And my wife's like, "Oh yeah, that Ace True Value. You just pop out this little tumbler and you put it in there." And I'm like, "No way!" And then we did it. We put it in there. We're like, "Whoa, shit! We could put a key on this sliding glass door. That's amazing." Because and then like we had some contractors that were doing the kitchen. They saw that. They're like, "You could do that? That's
Oh
amazing."
wow. Yeah. How did your wife know?
Because she's just amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she told you about pace and that episode that led you to stuff too. That's awesome. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, so you started Airbnb out your master, and now you're Airbnb out the entire house, right? Minus the garage,
Mhm.
because that's your office. How much are you making now compared to before?
Uh, it's over 5K a month.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the number is because
Hmm.
the first month it wasn't that much, but uh, and that's after all the taxes at Airbnb. That's what Airbnb pays us. So I'm not like including like my mortgage payment that I'm paying,
I
and
see.
I'm not including the insurance because that's paid to the mortgage. And
Right.
that was one thing that was kind of crazy because our house is built in the 30s, and we have been Airbnb-ing it, and we hadn't. And one of the things that I'm grateful for sub too is finding out all the things, you know. And so
Hmm.
they were like, "You gotta get proper like the right type of insurance for short-term rentals. You can't just have your
Yes.
homeowner's insurance." So I'm like, okay, well, who do I use? And people were recommending stuff, and I'm like, okay, cool, proper insurance. I called them, and they're like, okay, well, you need to sign this waiver saying that you don't have any of this type of copper, this type of you have copper piping, or you don't have this type of piping, and you don't have uh knotted tube or aluminum wire. And I'm like, what's that? And
Yeah.
they're
How do
like,
I know?
yeah, and they're like, well, it's cloth wrapped wire, is knob and tube wire. I'm like, oh shit, I know I have replaced some sockets. I didn't know enough about electrical to know that that was a bad thing. And so and I'm like, oh yeah, I've been up to the attic and I've seen a lot of cloth wrapped wire. So I'm like, holy shit. So we
Yeah.
just recently rewired our house, um, and we're closed for like a week, and we had some guys in there, and they were like crawling throughout the whole house and ripping up drywall, and they patched it all up, and we're back in business. So pretty
Oh, I
excited about
see.
that.
Okay. So you
Yeah,
just got like short-term rental insurance like recently.
just recently. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
And you got it through
now we're
Proper?
the proper. Yeah, I
Okay.
just got a quote. I'm just like actually like applying to it
I see.
as we speak.
Uh, yeah. I would say call a couple more insurance agents
Okay.
because Proper is definitely on the higher end. I don't really use them. I use like a different insurance company, and they were like half what Proper charged me. So just
Oh
keep that in
wow. Okay.
mind. So yeah, just call around,
Yeah, because they
ask
were
if they
pretty
do some short-term
expensive.
rental. Yeah, no, Proper's like it was like 3 times more expensive than like what my long-term rental insurance would have been. And then I ended up
Mm.
getting one that was like 1.5 times. So that's why I was like, it was literally like
Well, maybe
saving
after
half.
this, you could send me what you some ideas because I
Sure,
was
sure.
searching all over the place for answers for this. So yeah, I would love to know from
Okay,
a fellow
sure.
short term person.
Yeah, of course, no problem.
Awesome,
Okay.
dude. I appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. So second question is, so you're an advertisement, right? You're an artist, you're an advertisement.
Mhm.
Would you say, I guess the second question would be like, what do you consider yourself an expert in? So what part of being an advertisement or artist would you say you're an expert in? And then can you teach like our viewers or listeners, something
Oh
really
yeah.
quickly? Yeah.
I mean, I could teach a lot of things really quickly.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Seems like you know a lot.
Because I started like a long time ago working, as even as a student. Um, I just my parents had a restaurant. We started when I was 13. I was
Uh-huh.
training employees how to do customer service and how to take care of the customers, how to treat themselves as all the time as if they were their sole proprietors. You're your own business and you're trying to make money at somebody else's place. So that way they value their own time more and they take care of their customers, they take care of themselves, and they end up making more money as tips or whatever it is. That's kind of like the way you grow, is you always think of yourself as self-employed. So they and then after that, I went at work. Whenever I would work, I would like, oh yeah, I'm doing this, and I have all this like color theory and animation. I got my degree in graphic design, and so but I didn't go for like a regular graphic design degree. I went for a bachelor's of fine arts. So I took the extra portfolio reviews and extra rigor of studying, where I had to show other people how to do the things I was doing, because I wanted to be an art director. I wanted to be a creative director. And eventually I did achieve that for a little while. I worked at a television station. I ran an editing department, trained editors. I trained people how to do animation. I trained people how to do graphic designers, to graphic design, who wanted to be, there are people editors who were like, I want to do animation. I'm like, bro, chill out. Let me teach you the fundamentals. and then you'll grow from there. And, within a year of working for me, they would go out and get their own jobs doing like what I do. I even had two guys that were on my team that end up starting their own business, and they were doing like Disney work, as their clients, and they had other clients that were paying them like tons of money in Santa Monica. Like they were doing good enough to have their own space out there. So yeah, I love showing people how to do stuff, and I as far as like, that's one of the things I think that like kind of I like about this community, is there's a bunch of go-givers. People don't hoard information, they share it. As soon as they know it, they're down to teach somebody else that, like, I just found out this amazing thing, let me show you how. It's like that kind of mentality just kind of makes everybody consistently grow, and then it just keeps expanding. And I mean, I really do think this paces on to like making this really kind of cool community that's going to change the whole landscape of how people do things in this field or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. No, I really like that too, because like when I was growing up, it was like you kind of want to like hold your information because you don't want someone else to, use that information because they're your competition and stuff. Versus like in Sub 2, we're all like about giving, and from giving, people feel like they owe you, so they reciprocate by giving more back to you. So just this cycle of giving. So yeah, similar to what you said.
And I have ADHD, so like I've never got a job. I got my first gig through an interview, and ever since then it's been referrals. Like I've always gotten my next gig from being like, people would always be trying to pull me away from whatever gig I'm working on. I'm like, no, I love it here. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is kind of getting closed down. All right, okay, well, who wants me? And I was just like, I would get snagged up really quick. I've always tried to schedule a vacation after leaving a job, and it never works out. I'm always working the next day, the next week. It's like, I got a weekend off. Like,
you're such in demand. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's all about putting yourself out there, showing people. If people know that you're the kind of person that's going to be doing that, they're going to want you on their team, and because they know you're going to help their team grow, and you're going to grow, and everybody's going to grow. It's going to be amazing.
Right. No, that's awesome. Yeah. Okay. What advice would you give to your younger self or someone just starting out?
Man, I mean, I really love everything I've done. Maybe it would be for the longest time I had this whole like idea that like I spent a lot of time, especially after my divorce, just kind of like giving myself way too much space for a long time, and and it's just not going anywhere with it, just kind of like, oh, you know what, I need to heal first. And I did a lot, like all these things to try to heal, like from master cleansing and fasting for a while, to smoking a whole bunch of marijuana because I was living in Venice, to like, to like not, and then like doing triathlons and like just trying to spending too much time trying to find myself with that. And I could have done a little more productive stuff, like I could have gotten into this type of thing sooner, but I wouldn't have met the people and done things the way I'm doing them now. So I have zero regrets, but I guess that's one thing I would have done, is probably said, hey, like try to get try to get some property, try to get something that you own, because I was totally fine with renting
Hmm.
property. I would buy equipment. I would buy camera equipment and things like that, because I understood that if you invest in investments, that you can use them to make you money. Like every camera I bought, thousands of dollar cameras, they'd always be making me money. Even if I wasn't even using them, I'll rent them out to friends. So
Yeah.
so there's it's like I had the mindset for this type of thing this whole entire time, but I just wasn't taking advantage of it. So I think that, to get into this type of thing a little bit further, to really push my entrepreneurial, not let anything slow me down so much as it did. But I mean, I'm still very happy with the way things turned out.
Yeah. Good answer. So pretty much, get into real estate a little earlier and do
Yeah.
more of that. Okay. And this one's gonna be my last question. It's kind of like a two-part, but it's what are your
Okay.
current goals? Um, and then let's say you achieve your current goals, like what would you do after that?
Let's see. Well, my current goals are our current goals,
Yeah.
for me and Heather, is to get. We've had this dream of having vacation properties in all the places that we want to visit. We're
Oh
wherever
man.
we have friends, So we want, we've literally already like reached out to agents in Maine. We reached out to agents in Austin. We reached out to agents in Colorado, to places that are like kind of like dream properties. I think maybe we need to
Yeah.
focus more on like kind of like trying to get some deals. But I don't really. One of the things that Pace had said once was that ask yourself if you want 1,000 of these. You know what I mean? Before you take on don't go and just try to get a deal just to get a deal. Try to get a deal
Mhm.
because you're going to want 1,000 of those deals. And so we're looking at campgrounds, we're looking at RV parks and Airbnbs, duplexes where we can either rent out part of it as long-term rentals, and part of them as short-term rentals in cities that are friendly for that type of thing. We're looking at some of those in Maine. um, and so those are the types of things that we want to have, properties where we can go travel all over the world, all over the country, and all over the world. I'm Mexican and I love Europe, so I want to be able to go all
Mhm.
over the world eventually, and maybe even have properties all over the world. But right now, I want to focus in the U.S. and yeah, do that. And then once I achieve those goals, um, while I'm the thing is, I feel like some of this is some once I start having properties and I have a little more flexibility with money, financial freedom, and I don't have to have a W-2 where I could just be doing this. I would love to get back into like being a creative with art, fine art, painting. I love doing woodworking. I love doing all that kind of stuff. So, like when we had a just about a year ago, we had an Etsy store where we're selling like wooden earrings. I have my laser engraver right back there.
Yeah.
I have, like I just love making things. I love being a maker. So I want to be a maker that just makes fun stuff. I like for our Airbnb, I've made furniture, I've made signage, I've made stuff for inside the place, so like I just love doing that. That's just something I take pride in. I have fun doing it. It's like
Mhm.
my relaxation point. So and also I feel like it's cool to teach your kids skills. And
Yeah.
so by being a maker, the kids get to see you're making stuff and I get to make things with them. And if there could be a profit derived from that, why not? Like make everything you wanted that you're doing something that you could be making money off of, and or that at least pays for itself. you
Yeah.
know and yeah, that would be my like second goal, is to just be able to continue to do that, maybe even teach it, have people that come. Like it would be cool to, like one of the things that we're thinking is like if we had a campground that had a house on it, like we bought like what Rob Abasolo calls land hacking, where you buy a property that has
Mhm.
a house on it and then put glamping spots on it, but it has a house that you could either Airbnb the house, or that could be our primary residence. We can have like 100 acres somewhere with our house and glamping spots, and maybe there's a workshop, and then I can have people come over and say, hey, where did you get these things in your Airbnb? Come over to my house, I'll show you how to make them yourself. Like that
Yeah.
kind of thing. It'll be so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. I'm also very big into making and creating, so I
Oh,
definitely,
that's cool.
yeah, I definitely like. That's a really good goal to have. But
Yeah, hell
okay,
yeah.
awesome, awesome. Yeah, those are all the questions that I have. So I'm gonna end this recording. Uh, so thanks again, Eddie.